Hey everyone, it's Carla. Today's episode is a little different because I'm handing over the mic to someone very special. My friend Toya is stepping in as guest host. She's not from Maritime, but she gets it. She's been by my side through so much, and I couldn't think of a better person to guide this conversation. So here's Latoya.
Thanks, Carla. In this episode, I get to flip the script and talk to the person who usually does the interviewing, Carla Odwa. Carla has spent over 20 years in the maritime world, from navigating ships to leading emissions projects and now amplifying women's voices through this podcast. She's a consultant, a mom, and someone who's seen both the beauty and the battles of this industry. We talk about what inspired waves of change, the challenges Carla's faced in her career, moments that shaped her, and the importance of showing up even when it's hard. It's real, it's vulnerable, and I think a lot of women will see themselves in her story. Let's dive in. Okay, so let's jump right in. So, what inspired you to start Waves of Change Women at Sea?
Well, that's interesting because the reason I decided to start the podcast, this particular podcast, is because I've been in the industry, the maritime industry, for quite a long time, about 13 years now. And my experiences have always been a bit of a roller coaster. And I think that back in my time, okay, so 13 years ago is a long time ago, but there weren't as many resources for women, or I didn't feel as connected. And I thought that, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna try to start a podcast where women could just share their stories, just everyday women working in the industry, because I'm 100% sure that all of us who work in the industry have some sort of story to tell that could help another woman in the industry or women in other industries too who have similar experiences, because it's a very male dominated field. So that's why I was trying to promote voices of women.
Yeah, that sounds really good because I could relate to that being a female working in engineering, which is also a very male-dominated industry. So, can you share a bit about your early career in the maritime industry and how it shaped your current path?
Well, yes, my early career. So my early career had nothing to do with I should actually say my early studies had nothing to do with maritime career as it is now, the maritime industry. I initially started doing environmental management, and the only thing related to maritime was probably marine biology. But my dad was a captain. He worked his entire life in the maritime industry. He started when he was very, very young, a teenager, and straight until he was 70 plus. He was working in the maritime field. And he approached me one day about doing it while I was actually doing my first degree in environmental management. And I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. I actually, the motivation was because like I just kind of wanted to make my dad proud at that point in time. The
Mhm.
funny thing is that when I started doing the maritime aspect, which was navigation, so I enrolled to do navigation to be a officer of the watch to work on board vessels, and I really started to like it. like a lot. I really, really enjoyed the the whole program, the work, everything about it. What happened after that is that the seat time part of it, because when you pursue becoming an officer of the watch, you have to have 12 months of like basically on the job training where you work for 12 months on board vessels as a cadet. That's what you're like a internship. That's what they call you on board. And that part was very difficult. And I transitioned to offshore because of it when I did get my license. And I worked briefly offshore before I decided that I wanted to go fully onshore. And
Mm.
I started doing uh, different things within fleet management and operations, mostly in offshore. And then I moved to Paris. Well, I moved to France. And when I got here, I got into carbon emissions management and accounting. And I really, really enjoyed that. And now that is my specialty, basically.
Okay, great. That sounds like a very expansive career. So, having had so much experience in the maritime industry, which, like most other male dominated industries, could often present challenges for women. Have you personally faced any situations where you felt like you had to prove yourself a little more than your male counterparts or felt underestimated?
Yes. Um, there have been many, many times. I think I didn't say it before, but this is also one of the reasons why I started the podcast. Um, I think um my entire career in the maritime industry, for me personally, I've faced many struggles because um the industry itself is not very um adaptable to integration of women. This is from my personal perspective because of the things that I've gone through. And I've always felt that it's been very difficult to break in, to be taken seriously, to have
Mhm.
your ideas validated. Um, it's been very, very, very trying in each of the roles that I've had almost throughout the entire career. And I always persevere. I always try to move forward. It's not always easy um, to overcome those moments, to really rise above it. Sometimes I felt strong enough to do it, and sometimes, to be honest, they completely broke me. But at the end of the day, like I always come back to the same point is that I have to keep trying. I have to keep moving forward. Um, the only way I believe that change can happen, the change that I wish was there in place already, is by for women or for allies or for whoever is in the industry who can see the issues, is for us to keep trying and keep moving forward. It's difficult. It's very, very difficult. But I find my strength in mostly my friends or family or people close to me. And as of recently, in other women within the maritime industry. So it feels less alone in that way.
So, in your view, what steps could the industry take to create a safer and more inclusive space for women?
Well, yeah, this is a tough one. Because the maritime industry itself has been it's old. It's been there ever since humans took to exploring over water, you know. So the industry is very, very old, and the modern maritime industry is still reflective of that past, right? In the sense that, okay, for example, there are about 1.2% of seafarers are women, and it's something like 24,000 or thereabouts in the entire world, right? It's the lowest of any career of any industry globally. And so it's very difficult to change an industry like this to be more inclusive. And uh but by the efforts of there are a lot of women who are trying to make that change, who are doing things, you know, who just the women who are actually present there, who are working in the field and still continuing. It's all part of making that change. And I think to make it a safer environment for women, we need to probably have um more open discussions of what exactly are the needs for women to work in this industry, to be motivated to stay in the industry. Because actively, the 1.2% of women who are active seafarers right now, that's on the sea who work on ships, but there are a lot more who work on the shore side support of the maritime industry, but still not a lot. Not, it's still a niche. We're still a niche group compared to the amount of men in the industry. So I think having more of those discussions, those open forums, and for the people in control of creating regulations and um like the owners of the companies, the owners of the ships, I think they have to take an active role in diversity uh within the industry.
Yeah, I agree. So being a part of this 1.2% of women, I guess there may be instances where you could possibly feel isolated, you know. Have you ever experienced those? How have you handled it, and what support systems you think helped you?
Well, I think if we ask this question to almost any woman, they would say they would say the same thing. It's because yes, you do have moments when you feel isolated. And I have felt that many times. A lot of times. For instance, there's one time when I was a cadet. I think it was the first time I was going out on a vessel, but it was a huge vessel, my first time experiencing it, and I really didn't know what to expect. And I remember crying for about every day for
Oh,
about
wow.
2 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
Like, because I felt so alone. I was unprepared
Yeah.
for what the experience itself was or was going to be. To be honest, I know no one could really explain that to you. It's something you have to experience. But I do believe that we could do more in at least trying to get across the point of how exactly sea time or what exactly it is and how you may feel, and have mental health support for that. Because I cried for 2 weeks, like every day, and after that I was fine. I ended up staying 6 months, and but I kind of pushed through. I pushed through the isolation, and I tried to, learn as much as I could. And I still feel that way. And in other jobs that I've had on the shore side, sometimes I'm the only female voice or the only woman in a room or meeting with men. And being the only woman in a room with men in that way, it sometimes it feels like sometimes you feel like your voice is not heard. There are many times that I've made suggestions, I've said things, and it's dismissed, easily. And then I would hear it repeated within the next two or three questions by someone else and by a man, and it's taken
Mm-hmm.
seriously. And
Mm-hmm.
things like that tend to be very difficult to overcome because um I think my problem is not accepting that the way that we address these issues have to be balanced. And I always before in the earlier part of my career, I would try to fight it a bit more head on. And in the sense that I would be be a little bit naive in the way that I wanted the change to happen. I want it to happen right now, but it takes a while for change like that to actually occur. And sometimes, sometimes it's not. I found that sometimes some men genuinely don't know what they're doing wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, having the patience to explain that, or even the right vocabulary to explain exactly what they're doing, or how that affects you, is it's is difficult. Like I only learned the term microaggression not too long ago, like probably a couple years, in the context of using it to describe those those little things that are done that when they add up could be something much bigger to
Mm-hmm.
you. And at the moment, like so like if someone does something and you go and you tell a supervisor, you tell someone about it, it could be easily dismissed as, oh no, you're looking too much into it, you're overreacting a bit or something like that. And you know, it's it's difficult to explain how those little things or even big things, but how they could pile on to affect you. And so I really haven't had the support systems that I wish that I had or have. I to be honest, like it's only now that I'm trying to develop that, and because of how important it is, I was always afraid to share my perspective on those things. And so I wish that I had more support in the times in the past, but I'm trying to build that support now, so
Okay, so it sounds like those support systems could potentially have been like maybe a mentor. So, what role do you think mentorship and support networks could play in the role of maritime for women?
I think it's very important. Mentors, that support system that we're talking about, I kind of use it uh, in the same context. Yes, mentors are very, very important. I think, especially for women in the industry, for anyone in the industry, but I think especially for women. It's funny because I've done a couple interviews for this podcast with different persons, different women, and they all talk about this support system. Everybody who is successful, everybody who is charting their path, everybody who is moving forward, has this support system. And I think it's very, very important for us to be there for each other. Um, I think for me, I didn't really have that. I didn't know where to find it. And I think I was a bit of a recluse in being ashamed. I don't know if it's
Mm-hmm.
shame or something to that extent, or afraid to
Mm-hmm.
reach out to people. I always felt like if I reach out to them, they may think, oh, they don't have time for me, and I feel a little embarrassed or something like that. But that was a lack of confidence on my part. And so you need like you need to have that confidence to ask for the help, for to go after, to seek out this support. And there's plenty of support around. And that's the thing, is that when I started actively looking for it, I found it in different places. And everybody that I've talked to so far, they know how important it is to rely on each other, to rely on people who knows the field of what's going on. And it's not just women. A lot of the women that I've interviewed, they have strong support from men in the industry. And I have a few friends who are very supportive of me in the industry, a few guy friends also. So, I think it is something. Having strong mentorship is one of the things we could promote in a really positive way to help women in the field.
Yeah, that sounds really good. So, what advice would you give to women considering a career in maritime sector or leadership roles?
I I think um what you need, and you need uh you need confidence to succeed. Um you you need support from mentors, or just your group of support. And you need to hang in there. Because okay, so the confidence, how I would why I would say it's really important is because um you have to be able to know that you can do this. This is not something that is so unique to men. Women can 100% do this job. And you don't, because you're put in a situation where you feel a little bit outnumbered, well, a lot outnumbered. You have to have that confidence in yourself. And another interviewee that I had on the podcast, she was saying that the confidence is not just about, being sure of yourself, but needing to know when to ask for help. Because she was afraid of oh, they'll think she doesn't know what she's doing or something like that. And when she said that, I know exactly what she was talking about, because I felt it too. I could remember specific instances where I was afraid to ask for help because I didn't want it felt like anything that you do wrong would be like, oh, well, you condemning all women by those actions, because oh, you don't know how to do this. Yeah, women, yeah, that's why women are suited for this job, or something
Yeah,
like that, right? So it's a kind of a weight that is on you, even if you're aware of it. But the confidence is not just to be sure that you are capable of doing this job, but to be sure of yourself, to know that you need to ask for help sometimes, and nothing is wrong with that. And anything, that you're not just carrying the weight of all women on your shoulders. We there together. So it's like a all of us are there together. We shouldering this thing together. And so that leads to the support and the mentors and the network. It really does help when you have somebody who's experienced in the field to give you advice, to tell you how to do things, to take you under their wing. Because traditionally in the maritime field, it's been before they introduced like standardization of testing and getting the license and stuff like that. It was at one point in time where you would just start working on a vessel and work your way up, like back in the day of my dad, that's what he did. So, it was always like somebody taking you under their wing and showing you the ropes and showing you how to do
Mm-hmm.
things. So and it still is very relevant today, although we have these tests and we have the particular license to get and all these things. It's still very important if you can find somebody who will help you with the lack of experience that you have, who would show you the ropes, because at the end of the day it's still very useful, and plus to have support from your peers who may be in a similar position to you, or even your family or friends, because it's difficult. Being at sea for me was always very difficult. The career in itself, even the shoreside part of it, is very difficult, and it can break you mentally, which it has done for me. um, but with support, I overcame it. And the last thing I was saying was to hang in there. I know that sometimes it feels that the change is slow to come, and it is, and you may not see it right now, or you may not see it later this year or next year or even 5 years from now, but the change is happening. And for that to actually work, we need to hang in there and know that whatever we do now will be beneficial to all the women that come after us, because women before made it this way for us. So that's why I would say, so hang in there.
Yes, definitely. So, can you share any particularly rewarding or challenging moment from your career that shaped your perspective?
I think for me, it's more of the challenging moments that shaped my career. Um, uh, I think every challenge that I faced, everything that happened that made me feel like quitting or moving on or changing fields, um, it I would take a little bit of time, gain some perspective, and then jump back in. But each time that happened, it changed me. It changed who I am compared to who I was at that point in time. It made me understand different things, see things differently. And I can't say that I can't say that it's like just one particular thing. It has been a very challenging career for me, as I said before. And I honestly, like, I've spoken to a lot of women, and they're really making waves, really changing things. But for me, it hasn't always felt like that. And I feel like it's been really tough for me. And especially with I try not to focus too much on exactly what happened, but the things that I've learned from the experience. And what I did take out of basically every challenge is is that you have to set your head right, and you have to say, okay, I can do this. I know I can do this, and
Mhm.
build that confidence. And I don't know how to say it. The only thing that's coming to my mind is this saying where you take everything with a little pinch of salt.
Mhm.
Like I'm it's you have to be open and to move on, but a little bit cautious also.
Mhm.
And I think that level of cautiousness I never really had. I was a little bit too trusting that everybody has the best intentions. So I think out out of the challenges, one of the biggest things that shaped my perspective is to trust myself more when I have a feeling,
Yeah.
or is to be a little more cautious on how I give away that trust to people, you know.
So, being in such a challenging field, how do you stay motivated and continue to grow both professionally and personally?
So for me, um, to to stay motivated has been a challenge, but I think is when I realized that it's not just women in this industry. It's women in general in most industries that are male dominated. They face similar challenges. And I remember one time, about a couple of years ago, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I saw this YouTube clip on Angela Merkel, and how she's like the most powerful woman in the world. And she still had these problems. Like it was more of a, like, the leaders of the world, it was still kind of like a boys club. And they were showing
Yeah,
like little clips of things that she still had to deal with, although she was the most powerful woman in the world at that time. And I was like, oh, this sucks. And I commented on the video. I was like, wow, if the most powerful woman in the world has to deal with this stuff, what hope is there for me, just an average person, just an average woman trying to
yeah,
push forward?
yeah,
And the thing about it is, like, on that comment, I didn't expect anything, but then a series of women commented off on my comment, and they
hmm,
said, we know how you feel. And one in particular, one woman, she's like, I know how you feel, but you have to remember that this is a multi-generational game. She said, what your mom and your grandmother did, you're benefiting from now. And what you do now will benefit your daughters or the women to come. And I don't know, like, this is not something new. It's not something new, but
definitely.
when I read it, I felt it deep inside. I felt
Yeah,
her love and support. Not She didn't know me, she didn't know anything. She saw this was a woman going through something. I know what she's going through,
hmm,
and that is one big thing that helps me stay motivated, is knowing that change is happening, and for it to continue happening, for it to actually happen, women, and we have to keep moving forward. We have to keep pushing, keep working, keep doing what we're doing. It doesn't have to be anything big. Just your presence within the industry is is something, you know. And
yeah,
also I have two little girls,
mhm.
and I that adds to my motivation is that I don't want them to feel like this. I know that they will have challenges, but I know that once I keep showing up, that things will be a little bit better for them.
Yeah, definitely. So, speaking of Angela Merkel and leadership, as a consultant and podcast host, what qualities do you think are essential for leadership in the maritime industry?
Like in a previous question, I mentioned like the confidence that you have to have.
Mhm.
And I think that that is one of the most important things is the confidence for leadership to be in any sort of leadership role. It's I'm not saying to be cocky or to be overconfident.
Yeah.
Is not that. But the thing about it is that sometimes actually I would even say a lot of times when women show that confidence, every male counterparts or sometimes other women, depending, may see it as like, oh, she's too much, like she's trying too hard or something like that. We tend to criticize really quickly, but that confidence is key to that woman being in that position that she's in. Because I think, and I've been in this position where you are in a management role or a leadership position, but your counterparts, your male counterparts, are systematically trying to bring you down, and you may see it clearly, but trying to say it to someone else or express it, it could be dismissed very easily. And so what happens is that you kind of look like this crazy person who just seeing these reactions from that out of nowhere. Uh, so, when you talk about it, I'm not saying, you see, there's no one way because you may be in a company where you could talk about this and they'll take it seriously. But then
Mhm.
most of the time, I think, and I'm just saying this is my opinion, most of the time, that's not the case. There may be rules and there may be policies in place to for you to go with issues like this, but generally, implementing those things sometimes makes you the victim anyways, you know? And people tend to isolate you if they know that you complain. And then if you try to tough it out and not bend it to the pressure, it could burn you out, it could break you. People will think that, oh, she doesn't want to go for help, or she's too confident, or they'll use the B word. And I think it's just is ridiculous. But I think I really do believe that confidence, you have to have that level of confidence inside you to know that you could brush off certain things when people say, or that you could move past it, because it's really important. If you start to take on everything that's being said around you, it's gonna pull you down. Like
Yeah.
with heavy, heavy weights, it's gonna pull you down.
Mm.
And well, additionally, I think like if you have good mentors or good support too, and because it's a male dominated industry, specifically the maritime industry, if you have allies, male allies on your side, who are genuine, I think that that helps a lot. Also female mentors, but because it's most of the time it's men around you, or you need to interact with them. You can't, you have to to get to a place where you could talk to each other, have discussions, let them know what it is you want, and and try to have those discussions so they can see your point of view too.
Yeah, definitely. I can relate to that.
I'm sure you can.
Yeah, I have my own stories from working in the oil and gas industry and working on offshore platforms with where I was the only female on board for long stretches. So I could totally relate to everything that you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. You see, it's not just to specifically my industry. It's I think it's a general struggle of women who tend to go into fields that were at some point in time mostly men, you know.
Yeah, so now we have to look to the future. So what changes would you like to see in the maritime industry to make it more accessible and supportive for women?
I think I think we have to start at the beginning of where you get the training, right? I think that we should implement some kind of um uh, gender studies or diversity. I'm not really sure of exactly what would be best, but I think from the beginning, from the start, from when you start to pursue a degree in this, you should know more about the career, and we need to have like more outreach to women, because I don't know many women who get into the field just because they've heard about it, or it's something that's presented to them in some, like as a university option or something like that. We generally get into it because of someone we know, or, a family member or something like that who has been in the industry. And so I think like having uh, more outreach to geared towards women would be one way to help to have like a clear path targeted for at women. And also to there's so little women at sea, and this change may not happen very easily, but I don't think a lot of policies are friendly to women. For example, I think like every woman that I've spoken to who's actively working on the sea, everybody I interviewed for this podcast, they have a plan to move onshore
Mhm.
because it's not conducive of having any sort of family life for the woman. I mean, my
Mhm.
dad was a sailor. He was gone for periods of time and stuff like that, but you know, that is pretty normal, like in the industry today.
Mhm.
Men work until they're old and gray captains, but women tend to
Mhm.
come out a lot sooner because if they want to have children, or they want even sometimes just sustaining any kind of relationship is kind of difficult. And
Mhm.
they've said it, women say it. And I also have had experience with that too, where like I I was married, and but my husband was a engineer on board also.
Mhm.
And there came a point in time where we did not see each other because we were working with different companies. We didn't see each other for about 7 months straight.
Wow. Mhm.
And we made the decision. Well, when I say we made the decision, it wasn't really like that. Um, somebody had to stop if we wanted to have a better relationship. And there wasn't really a discussion about it. It was just understood that it was going to be me. And now that I think about it, well, that's my ex-husband. But now that I think about it, I I think it's one thing that I regret is that
Mhm.
I didn't fight or I didn't say no, I want to work at C2. But so that's the thing, is like the policies aren't supportive of the realities of women. And okay, even if women decide, like Sifera, she decides to have children, I'm not sure what the policy is of a pregnant woman working on board, to be honest. I've never encountered any. And I think that they all just stay away. There's nothing like I don't think there's a I'm pretty sure there's no maternity leave, and the path back to your job after having a baby, it's very, very difficult, you know. So I think I don't know how to bridge this, but I think open discussions, more you know, more consultations with women in this regards to like what we need more from the industry. I think it would help in better understanding what we should put in place.
Yes, yes, I can so relate to everything you're saying. It's almost the same in the oil and gas industry. Like once you become pregnant, you automatically you cannot go on site. And even after you have the baby, you still can't go on site once you're breastfeeding. And you have to get medical clearance from a doctor. So all these industries have a lot of change coming
Yeah.
to include women.
Yeah, but I want to ask you a question.
Sure.
So in the oil and gas industry, right?
Mhm.
Are those changes like do they happen? Because I think like in the maritime industry, and this is from what I see, the changes are slow to happen. You know, yes, it is better now than it was 10, 15 years ago, but it's the movement is small. Is it the
Mhm.
same in your industry or no?
I would say yes, it is very small, but it is happening because one example is the very first time I went on an offshore platform and I had to stay overnight, there were no female quarters.
No.
They literally had to make up a bed for me, and I slept on the floor in a closet.
Oh
That
my
was my, I kid you not. I
God.
wouldn't call the name of the company, but I slept on the floor in a closet because there was no female quarters. But now, when you go on offshore platforms, this was like, let's say, 15 years ago. But
Yeah.
now, when you go on offshore platforms, they have specific female quarters. So there is change coming slowly, gradually. But like with everything, it's very, very incremental.
But as you said that, it's actually very similar with accommodations on board vessels for women.
Oh,
So,
really?
like, you can't assign a woman to a vessel that doesn't have accommodation for women.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
So, I know like a couple companies that may have one vessel that could accommodate women. So the placement of women would only be on that vessel versus the next
Mhm.
10 that they have, you know,
Yeah,
or but it was worse in the sense that there was none before,
yeah.
no specific accommodations, and now they actually have a few vessels built with it now. And but you'd find it a lot easier on the like cruise ships though, and you tend to see a lot more women working on cruise ships like officers.
Right, right. Yeah. So, what legacy do you hope to leave through Waves of Change Women at Sea?
Well, honestly, like I just want it to be someplace for women to feel supported, to feel less alone, to find that tribe, to find your tribe, find that support.
Yeah,
To and also want to give the woman's perspective to people who need to hear it or would like to hear it or try to understand. And eventually, like I honestly think the more interviews that I do, the more recordings and the more women that I speak to, I think that there's some issues that come up that I see across the board. I see from person to person bringing up the same thing or they have the same perspective on it. So I think that we could uncover some issues um, and maybe even find out how we could approach it because, you know, I think that the suggestions are is it shouldn't only come from people who are like on the outside looking at the industry at women at sea, but it should come from the women who are there, who are living the experience, who are doing it day to day. So, I hope that I hope even if it's just one person who listens, one woman who decides that she's in the field or she just feels a little bit of support when she has that aha moment, like I know exactly what they're talking about,
Yeah.
and just feels that less alone to know that somebody else, and a lot of us probably go through the same thing, and it causes her to just hang in there or feel a little bit better. That's basically what I want for this podcast.
I think that's really inspirational, and I love what you're doing here to give women at sea a voice, and by extension, women in general, because like I said, I could relate to so much of what you're saying. So as we close, is there anything else you would like to add that maybe I didn't touch on?
No, I don't think there's anything that I want to add. I mean, I pretty much covered it. But the thing is that it's just part of one story, and I feel like I feel like my story is not one of the most positive stories, but I don't want to discourage people. I want them to learn from what I've been through, you know.
Mhm.
I want them to take something from it as to not what to do, maybe. I don't want it to be discouraging because I may not always have um the best stories to tell about something that happened in the past. As I said, it's been very trying. But, you know, my friends are great friends. And when
They're
I've
those
been
friends.
when I've been really down, they always supported me. So, and that's basically my story.
Yeah, and your story is more than likely the story of many other women. So thank you so much for your time and allowing me to be your guest host. It was really great.
Yes, I had a lot of fun doing this. I didn't know I had so much to say. So thank you. And also you're very welcome.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in to Waves of Change Women at Sea. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would take a moment to subscribe or leave a review. It really helps get the word out and honestly keeps this little podcast afloat. Until next time, stay inspired and keep making waves.